Hey everybody. Well, welcome back to the Tech Recruiter AMA with us again. It's our October version of AMA for us here. So I just wanted to quickly introduce the team that we have today. Serena over in the Bay Area, Heather over in Waterloo, Canada. Vic is also in the Bay Area, and we have our special guest Janine LaFleur, who is head of strategic product management with SAP IO, formerly of Hipmunk. Janine, thanks for taking the time and joining us today.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm really excited to be here.
Absolutely. Awesome. We'll get right into it. So this one's for you, Janine. I will ask you directly here. What is your perspective on the description/definition of a product manager role, being in product management, of course?
Yeah, so a lot of people think about product management and they think about the roles and responsibilities and the product lifecycle, which is all true. I like to think of the definition of product management more about the heartbeat of what product management is about. So to me, and you've probably heard this before, but being the mini CEO of your product line is really important because what that means is that you have all the responsibility of running an end-to-end business. You run your product as you would run a business and making sure your customer is successful, but also making sure that you are thinking about your bottom line. Now, the catch to having the mini CEO of your product line is that you have all the responsibility and none of the direct management power, right? So you have no direct authority. You have to earn that. It's like straight badges of honor. You have to earn it with your team. And so that's the big difference because it's really about people skills. And we can talk about this more later, but I love that kind of interaction you have with people. And that kind of leads to the roles and responsibilities. And I think of product management as 3 concentric circles. So the first circle is what we talked about before, product development, and that's the product life cycle. So knowing your customer, understanding the market, understanding what the problem is, your customer problem that you need to solve for, creating what they call an MVP, which is a minimum viable product. There's a lot of, some people have concern over that term, but you really got to think about what's viable. That's the key there. And then build, test, and measure. So you got to just constantly be at it and iterating. So the second circle is what I think of from product strategy point of view. And we already kind of touched on that, and that's how you run your product like a business. So making sure you think about how it can be impactful and how you can succeed and you're hitting your KPIs of the business. And the third part of product management, which I think kind of gets overlooked and to me is one of the core backbones, is change management. And by that, it's kind of a collective term that is talking about preparing, supporting, and helping individuals and teams and the organization make the necessary changes to be successful. So you don't have to be, a senior leader to do this. You can manage from the bottom up. You can manage from the top down, but really it's about looking at the processes and procedures that you and your teams are implementing and executing on, as well as the team structures and things like how you are focusing your team. So things like initiative-based product management, which is a way I found to be successful in creating goals for your product teams. That is really about what the business needs are. So those are kind of some of the key things. I don't know, I would love to run an analogy by you guys. Have you guys, baseball, right?
Oh yeah.
Like in most roles, you have one job. So you're either the first baseman or the second baseman, etc. So to me, in product management, you're wearing so many hats that you have to be everything together. So a coach, because you're creating the playbook. You have to be the pitcher because you're creating, the current situation. You're calling out the shots live in the moment. And sometimes you have to be the catcher because you're dusting off the home plate, showing the baselines. How does the team score? What the goals are? How do they get there? And how they measure that success? And then celebrating that success with them. So I'd love to hear you guys' thoughts on that analogy.
So I think the one thing is for sure that you're just not a product manager or product management person, but you love baseball. After a long time, I actually have heard people comparing baseball to pretty much anything and everything.
Yeah.
But going into the detail, it tells me that. So who's your favorite team? I'm like, out of curiosity.
Well, I gotta say I'm, here, so I'm Giants, but I'm from Maryland, so the Nationals are actually not so bad.
See, that's what I thought. No, thank you. I think I think how you explained is right on point, because a lot of times folks that are being in product management or they want to get in there, they're moving from development to product, being a product owner or product management in general. a lot of time, it's just like, it's such a large, vast field that it's always good to hear from somebody like you who's been there, done that, and they can kind of learn from that.
Yeah. Cool.
And so moving moving on to our next question. I know we are here in especially in the United States, we've been hearing a lot about how job cuts, right? Like what's the jobs looks like. And now we are at a place where we've been having asked a lot of these questions. Are companies open to hire remote employees due to COVID pandemic? And I think this question is coming from because before, everybody, like Silicon Valley used to be a tech center, but then East Coast, New York City, and then LA became, I think, Santa Monica. Right now, a lot of folks that moved here, they want to go back, but they still want to see, hey, can they still have those jobs that they like, right? So I will have somebody from a team take that.
I will. It's an interesting question, and I'm going to say this for twofold, and mostly because I just finished voting last night, and there was something that came up in the polls that was related to this in California, and there's propositions and stuff that may actually deter companies in the future from coming to California. But I already know that there's a lot of companies out there who have consciously made the move to let their employees actually opt in to being 100% remote. And I do know that SAP did step into that to some degree. And I think that's great because there's a lot of roles out there that don't require you to be a button seat kind of player. So I think the differences and the biggest feedback that we've gotten so far is that the one thing you do lose with a remote environment is that interaction as a team and the creativity that comes when you are in a button seat office environment. So I mean, I'm trying to see it from both sides. Obviously I have the pleasure of being a recruiter and kind of getting to work from wherever I want. But I do understand that there are a lot of jobs that do benefit from having that team and collaborative environment. So I hope that there are going to be more companies who do realize that in order to keep great talent, that they're going to need to let people work remote, and that hopefully COVID wasn't a positive influence on this. But I do still believe that at the end of the day, there are still going to be some companies that would want to have that collaborative team environment just so that they can hopefully produce the best result and product for their clients and their company.
I know, Heather, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I
I'm
mean,
going to pick on the people that they're the busiest right now.
yeah, I mean, it depends on the company, what they're looking to do. I'm like Serena, I think it's going to open up a lot more companies and different types of roles to start opening up remotely. At least that's my hope as a recruiter. I think it opens the talent pools, definitely. Like she said, as a recruiter, we have the opportunity to work from wherever and still collaborate with our teams, but we understand the importance of engineering teams wanting to meet in person. So I think, once offices do start to reopen, a lot of teams are going to be relieved for that, but I'm seeing a lot of teams adapting and being flexible, and it's great. And I think it's just going to really let everyone be able to hire the best talent at the end of the day.
Sounds like a plan. And I think moving on to the next question, I think we're going to go back to Janine again. As we told you, Janine, we're going to keep you busy.
Sure.
So I think when this is a question that came up, quite a few people asked, like when they obviously, part of us, like we tag you as our guest on LinkedIn, and they were like, hey, one thing they wanted to know was what do you like the most about being a product manager?
Yeah, so I love this question because, first of all, I don't know that a lot of people, at least back in the day, they didn't even know that product management existed. Now it's kind of getting taught more mainstream and in business school, etc. I literally got into product management by sitting next to someone on a plane. And I got talking to them and they said, hey, come interview at my company. And I did, and it happened to be a product role, and it was just lucky. So I didn't plan for it, but I can tell you that there's 3 things I love about being product management. First thing is I'm a people person. So I love interacting with people. You don't have to be an introvert or extrovert. It really doesn't matter. I am an extrovert, but you can be a quiet leader as well. You need to love interacting with people though, because you're the cross-functional glue that holds the teams together, and making that impact and being inside that nook is really, I love that feeling. The second thing I love is that how many of you guys, I don't know, do you guys get to see the immediate success of your job or not? I mean, like, not, like, do you get to see immediate results? You kind of see later on what something is. So product management is like, you get to see if you're making an impact or not pretty quickly. I'm a data-driven analytical person, and I love that you set a KPI, you set your hypothesis, you do some multivariate testing, which means like A/B testing. You get to see very quickly if you hit your goal or not, and if you didn't, you course correct and you pivot and you compensate. If you did hit it, you keep going, but right away. So you are constantly just like hitting, making progress towards your goals and course correcting if you're not. So I love that you can do that. And the third thing, which to me is the most important, you got to make phenomenal impact. So I consider myself what I think of as a purpose-driven product leader. And this is where I enjoy making an impact in the livelihoods and lives of customers, whether they be consumers, they could be small, medium-sized businesses, they could be enterprises, et cetera. They could even be employees internally, but you get to see the impact of your job right away. In some cases, you're touching hundreds of millions of people. And I don't know very many roles that you can do that effectively. I love that.
That's really cool. I mean, a lot of times the satisfaction in your job actually has to do with, do you realize how your job makes an impact? Mm-hmm. And I guess, but at least being a recruiter, you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, but I mean, thankfully, I do know that the people I hire make an impact, but what that actually is on a day-to-day, like, it's not always very clear. So, I mean, can I answer the question of how my job makes an impact? Yes, I hire people who make a difference at SAP, but like beyond that, it's like, I don't always know what you guys do enough to, kind of do that. So, but it's also highly valuable in a role to just know that you're making an impact and be able to see it. You can't always say that for roles, and that's just, it's sad, but it's true. So if you're blessed to be in a role that you can actually see that impact, it's pretty lucky from that side.
And I think it has to do, right? I think it's kind of like I know you mentioned, like, recruiting is kind of like that, right? So there is no immediate result. Like, right, you have to go through the process, and we, when I'm trying to explain how recruiting works to somebody outside who has never been part of it, I always tell them, I was like, we are interacting with humans that are not algorithms. You can't fine tune them. I said, they have a mind of their own and they can change it at any point in time, right? So there's a lot of moving parts that needs to come together to make this happen. And like Serena said, right, it is amazing to see that all that hard work that went in, so many people got being part of the process, right? That might be the candidate potentially applying to the role, then hiring teams interviewing those candidates, then, folks that are in the back end that nobody gonna see, who does a lot of data entry work to make sure that hire happens, then the orientation, right? And by the time the person starts, it's like a lot of people are being highly invested into that, right? So, and then we see, and then later down the line, we're gonna start seeing the impact. Sometimes it's like, hey, so now we end up hiring the whole team. Now guess what? Just sit back and watch them do something, right? And then the products start coming out. I think I kind of see that happening in ICN when I'm hiring in IO, right? It's just like you keep hiring, and then bam, like one day you see a product. So yeah, we kind of can relate to you, but not exactly. The only thing is that our products are humans, yeah, and and the impact is a little different. So yeah, from that perspective.
Very true.
Moving on to our next question. What should early graduates do to stand out for their next internship? I know we have answered this question a couple of AMAs ago, but this is being a hot topic, especially, the current scenario. So I was like, we should just bring it up again, have somebody with a different take, see if things have changed since then.
Yeah, for sure. I can take that. So I guess I'll kind of answer this in two parts. So if you're looking to apply and land your next internship, so in terms of what I would do on a resume is, if you have previous internship experience, highlight that, make sure the employer that you worked for is clear, the position, the technologies you use, so that recruiters can see if it's relatable to the next job you're applying to. Outline the project and then any successes as well. So just make sure that it's really easy for us to read and understand your resume. If you've actually landed that internship and you want to stand out while you're there, my best advice is to network. So get to know your team, get to know teams that you're partnering with. Use that time really wisely. Of course, you want to do your work and be successful in your projects, but definitely get to know people in the organization, because you never know what other doors that will open for you in the future. And ask questions as well. I mean, even if it's not related to the specific project you're working on, take that opportunity to ask those questions, get involved. There's always a lot to do at SAP outside your day-to-day as well. So just make the best of whatever duration your internship is.
Sorry, I was mute. So we have another expert, Serena, that comes from the world of early talent. What's your take on that?
I would agree with Heather. I think the phrase I would use is that it's, even as a recruiter, so give us, for example, what we're actually paid to do is hire individuals, but there's a lot of opportunities and things behind the scenes that we can actually take advantage of that makes us more valuable, I guess is the word, as an employee. So having a social media presence, hosting AMAs like this, even just going into the office versus having working from home, or, having a visibility, I think is a big miss when it comes to any job, but especially when it comes to interns and grads. I think that so many people get focused on the job they were hired to do and just being a butt in a seat, that they forget that there's so many things that they're missing if they don't take the time to step out and network. It's not just technically about networking. I mean, you are networking within the process, but what you're doing is you're being visible, and people are going to start to know your name and start to talk to you, and that can make all the difference. So I definitely agree with Heather in that sense, but I would take it one step forward and think of it more as being visible in the way of networking and kind of going out and meeting other people than just necessarily, I think it's a little old school to just say, this is what I was paid to do and that's all I'm going to do, and this should get me where I want. It's not always that simple. So take advantages of the companies that are out there like SAP that give you other opportunities to network and have fun and go out there and be visible, as I know it's going to help hopefully give you some opportunities, not only for future internships, but also full-time jobs.
Yeah, it's like insider baseball. I mean, obviously with all the early talent resumes you see, they all pretty much look pretty similar. Obviously, if you don't have, in-depth internships, or if you do, it's great. You can bring that out in your resume and kind of take that next step. But think about how many people look exactly like your resume does from the same school you go to. So putting a personality and a brand to your resume and your whole being. I mean, you can be a brand at this point. That's what we're told in recruitment to do. So, put ourselves out there. So yeah, like Serena said, and just kind of reiterating it, putting yourself out there, putting a face to a name, personality to a face it's definitely very helpful, especially at a place that's so large as say an SAP or another company it's that big. Kind of putting yourself out there in the right way and making your name in a right way is not a bad thing. So just to further your point. You're on mute again, Vicky.
Janine, what's your take on this? I know I think it's going to be interesting for all of us to know, like, for you, a little bit of your perspective.
Yeah. So I mean, I definitely. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. Go back and repeat the question because I just lost my train of thought.
So I'll come back to it. I actually have a better question for you. So what are the three, let's talk about from a product management perspective, right? Yeah. What are the top three qualities somebody should have in order for them to be a successful product manager, yeah, or in the field of product management, right? I'm gonna kind of like do both, right, from that perspective.
I actually think they're really overlapped. A lot of people think about qualities for product management as being results oriented and data driven. A lot of the stuff we talked about, subject matter expertise, core competencies around agile planning and translating business needs to technical requirements, etc. To me, what the qualities that make a product manager great are not necessarily learned in a classroom. They really come from within. And you can get them from maybe, great mentors or having people around you to look at, role models, etc. The first one is humbleness. So it's, you can be very confident, but to me, if you have an ego in product management, you won't get that authority through the respect that I was talking about before. You have to earn that respect, and being humble is putting yourself in someone else's shoes and making sure you don't assume that or understand what they're going through. And that could be your colleagues, or it could be the end user as well. So some people call it servant leadership, which is a philosophy where you kind of interact with others with the aim of achieving authority rather than power. So again, back to that authority, you do this through empathy, through listening, through stewardship, commitment to personal growth of others. So it's really like taking there's no I in team, right? It's like really putting that forward and taking it to heart. The second quality I think is really important is emotional intelligence, so EQ. And the things that kind of you think about with this are things like self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management, etc. So any PM can conduct a customer interview, but the best PMs will put themselves in the shoes of the customer to empathize with them. And similarly, across the organization, you need to think about like how you put yourself in the shoes of your colleagues and your friends. So you need to navigate both internally and externally to be able to ship a great product. So emotional intelligence, EQ, is a big part of that. And the third thing we've touched on, but really back to being that leader, it's more than just being a leader and having that authority, it's being the pillar or the beacon across the organization. So this is where everyone looks to you, right? So if the sun's shining, they want to see the sun shining. If things are bad, they want to hear why it's bad. So the biggest advice I'd give here is just to be transparent and focus on communication, trust, and camaraderie. So that's like, again, you kind of need to know that from within, and you glean it from talking to others. But those are the qualities that I think really make, a good product manager in that leadership role. Like some of the philosophies that I like are ski forward on your skis. You guys ever heard something like that? So don't be afraid, ski forward on your skis, you're being aggressive. Don't be afraid to fall down, pick yourself back up and keep going. And I find that's what makes the best product managers.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
And we have so Janine, as part of this, like we promised you, right? We're gonna have a lot of questions coming from our audience as well, and we kind of love that. So one of the questions that we want to answer is, what do people often miss out when preparing for an interview? And Janine, I think you should take this.
I can take that. So in full transparency, this is probably TMI, like I completely over prepare for interviews. I think it's super important. I'm not embarrassed to say it, but it doesn't matter if you're early in your career or late in your career. I literally have prepared for 5 to 10 hours for one interview. And by preparing, what I mean is like, do your research, look at that company's website, look at their products, look at their mission statement, understand why they're there in business, what you can contribute to that, what your skill set and your experience are that contribute to that. And then I literally will write out examples of everything that I can think of that they might ask. And that might mean like key technologies I've worked with, like AI and ML and how it applies to the sector they might be in. It could be about, risk in rewards and in problems that you've encountered, but have your answers tailored towards the organization that you're looking for. I'm not saying make things up. I'm saying use your experience and bring germane, key points out to that. So I think that's really important. And just making sure that you hit on those top things. And like, if they have a mission that's about making people's lives better, talk about how you've made people's lives better. So I think those are things that you can miss out on if you don't prepare well for an interview, and it shows when you do.
Hey, Ryan, can we clip that? That's perfect. I think, honestly, I think that's super helpful. I mean, obviously from the interviewer seat, I don't think, a lot of people do prepare, but I don't think they go to the depth they need to. I think a lot of things that they miss are, like you said, figuring out where the mission statement means to you and being able to kind of speak to that is something that's huge. I think that's underrepresented in these interviews. I know a lot of them are very, very straightforward and we're hitting on technical points. You don't always have the amount of time that you need to go into, depth about things, but I'd say going into it with a kind of a playbook of sorts, kind of having an idea as to the job description, how that pertains to what you've done into your career, whether it's one of your first roles has something that pertains to the third bullet point or the first bullet point for the most recent career move that you've had. The biggest thing too, I think that candidates don't always do, because it may be it might be a point of contention or something that they don't feel comfortable doing. But if you like, if you like the role, if you think you're a good fit for it, tell the manager that you would like to be considered for the role, that you have interest, that you want to move forward. We deal with so many candidates every day that, maybe the hiring manager gets a chance to see that you're a good fit, but doesn't know where you stand. I know the job market's tough. I know it's very competitive. So if you like the role, especially in these times, let the manager know, hey, this is a great fit for me. I'd hope you consider me, and don't be afraid to put yourself out there and make sure that they know that you're, somebody that they could see as a fit in their team.
I love that.
Thank you.
This is one heck of a topic. Sorry, Victor, interrupt you. The interesting thing, sorry for laughing at you, Janine. I actually wasn't laughing at you. I was laughing at your response, because a lot of the people we deal with are like introverts. I actually am one. And I think the problem with being an introvert necessarily is that you're overthinking it, but not in a prepared way. So to me, there's a big difference between, coming and preparing, doing your research versus overthinking it. And I think what happens is that when you continuously overthink something, if it doesn't go exactly right, it backfires on you in the total interview process. Because I know that some people literally will have scripts put out, but then if they don't use word by word, then it screws them up, and then they lose their confidence in an interview and stuff. And then the other key point to this is programs like SVNT. And SVNT is our Silicon Valley Next Talent program, and it's actually a rotational program. So you're not going in for like specific job X. You're going in to end up being put into a placement program where you actually get to experience multiple jobs. So how do you go in and actually interview and best prepare for something that doesn't have a black and white job description? So it's a great program that we have, but I do know that one of the hardest parts of it is definitely the interview process, because you kind of have to be very almost like a mixed personality, or kind of like a product or project manager when you wear many hats. So maybe you're that third baseman guy or whatever they are that sits on third base and kind of oversees everything. But it makes it tricky in regards on how to interview. And I don't think a lot of people think that you can actually overthink from like a non-strategic point of view. But then it's also, you could come in and not really have a black and white job description, or really have that black and white structure to go and prepare for. So there's a lot of things that could come in. And I know that it's one of the things that we love to test with when it comes to SVNT, because it really does kind of show how you might come in and how flexible you are. And we've had a lot of great success with SVNT and the designers and the developers and everybody who's come out of it. And it's been a really successful program over the last few years. So it's funny how kind of everything ties together in that sense.
And thank you. I think we SVNT is a great program for anybody who's looking to be part of like a rotation program. And I know SAP does it, a lot of other companies as well, but obviously for me, like the one that SAP is better than everybody else. I'm going to be biased on that, but I think I know there's another question, just a follow-up question to that. If the international master students eligible for it, unfortunately, I don't think so. Any one of us is part of that program. So but definitely reach out to us after this, and we will be able to check that to get a better answer on that. We don't want to comment on something that we're not really 100% sure about. But sticking to the same, early talent, internships, SVNT, kind of like, they're all like part of like the early talent journey. And I know, Heather, you've been connected with it for a while. So what's your, and this is a different question. Somebody just asked me a couple of days ago, they said, hey, is there have we as tech recruiters in the industry, has we seen a shift in that? How those internships are happening, right? Is it more engineering based versus product based? Are there more option now with the tech companies, right? Are they hiring just engineers or products, or they're actually are a lot, like UX, like user design, interaction design? Because what's happening is like a lot of candidates these days graduating, they obviously their major might be computer science, but their minor is something else, and they're more interested in their minor after the graduation than their major, right? From that perspective.
Yeah, so I mean, it's been a while since I've touched internships, but I feel like the profiles that we're hiring for stay the same generally throughout the years. Really heavy on the engineering side in North America. I know there definitely are other internships out there in HR and marketing and that sort of thing, but pretty heavy on the engineering. I don't know if Serena, if you maybe know a little bit more about that.
I would probably really agree on that, from that side.
Yeah, okay. And no, that makes sense. And moving on, right? So another question that somebody just actually, I just saw, happened to glance over and got a question out of my LinkedIn, and somebody said, and they're asking for, what are the hottest skill set from an engineering stack perspective that we are seeing is hot commodity in the Silicon Valley right now. And I know, and I know, and I can see Max shaking his head. He's like, "Don't tell me it's another security role."
Yeah. No, I mean, I don't know if you want to take that, Vic, but I mean, from my side, I mean, this year I've been pretty much heads down in cybersecurity. So I think really, if you're talking about cybersecurity, I can help you there. But yeah, a lot of my stuff's been in Newtown Square, still is security focused. If you have Splunk experience, let's chat. Please, let's chat. And especially if you're in Pennsylvania and the area there. But yeah, Vic, I don't know. I mean, from my perspective, I mean, when I was hiring in the Bay, it's always Java. But I mean, I don't know if there's anything else you're kind of focusing on, or anybody else is focused on this year that we should kind of highlight from a skill set.
And I think pivot. I think from my perspective, 2020 has been a unique year, right? We can keep talking, like, it's a never ending conversation if you start talking, like, how COVID or the pandemic has affected or affecting the greater world, right? But I think from a technology perspective, a lot of the things that I've seen that were supposed to go in are being kind of like pushed out because it's still very uncertain. But some few things like, so like cybersecurity, right? A lot more companies, doesn't matter. Tech companies were always prepared, right? They were always used to set up their employees. I think my company, like, our company, SAP, or some of my friends that work at other tech companies in the Bay Area and outside the Bay Area, it was just turning on a switch and everybody is working from home. But at the same time, I was talking to some of the companies that work in other ways, supporting companies take their employees remote, and especially some of the government agencies. You have like a lot of security that needs to go in place. So I think security in general has been a hot topic in 2020. It doesn't matter what shape or form. If you're a Java developer but you work on security code, yes. Like, C++, yes. If it's a security related to tech, yes. But at the same time, let's not forget, there's a lot of advancements that are happening. A lot of things are happening from an AI perspective, AR perspective. There's a lot of stuff happening on, other day I was reading a lot of stuff happening on quantum computing, right? And let's not forget, when everybody's talking about the vaccine for COVID-19, the reason they're able to move so fast is there's a lot of computing power that's supporting that research to move it at that speed. So I think a little bit of like, a lot of time is like, hey, but like if somebody who's here still like trying to look for a job, there are plenty of jobs. Like every tech companies are still hiring, right? And but at the same time, I have personally not seen anything new popping up in 2020 I know there people are talking about some few stuff here and there, but beyond that, it's been an interesting year. But just stay tuned. There's a lot of things not in Silicon Valley, everywhere else. I'm actually seeing like some of the places in Europe are becoming startup hotspots, and you're gonna see a lot of good stuff coming out of there probably in 2021 because we are almost in the tail end of the year, and but from and I think we have another moving on. We have another question. Do we hire fresh grads? And yes, 100% we hire fresh grads. And we are actually, not just us, everybody else in the industry is, you guys, like the fresh grads are the future, right? No matter how you look at it, right? You can slice it, you can dice it in 500 different ways, but the thing is that in order for the companies to go to the future, you need to have that experience. You need to, yes, a lot of people, I've spoken to a lot of early talent, and sometimes they're kind of nervous that, hey, we're getting in there, like, how it's going to go. I said, hey, you have no idea what experience you bringing to the table. There's a lot to learn from the fresh grads that are coming. And yes, SAP as a company, we are all about it. Anybody else? Anything else, like from anybody else? Have you seen anything different? I know we all are hiring them at some point.
Well, I mean, technically this kind of overlaps to the prior question, but we get this question like all the time in regards to what are we hiring, what's new, what skills do I need, and be an intern, a graduate, or a professional. I mean, you're in tech, so guess what? You're probably going to get a different answer, every few times, or, even from company to company. So it makes it hard. And I'm sure Janine can even touch on this too. But I mean, every company tries to prepare and look to the future and say like, hey, we predict based off of past results and future things that we're trying to achieve that we're going to need X, Y, and Z, but stuff happens to be nice. And, all of a sudden COVID hits, or, if it's not COVID, it's something else. And in the midst of that, things change, maybe a security breach from Target or whatever it may be. And so even the best you can prepare, stuff happens. So the skills we needed before may not be the skills we're going to be later. It also comes down to the fact that even in like product management, I'm sure, as the industry changes and AI comes in and a bunch of other stuff, the same code that's used now is not the same code that was used before. And so having that active mindset to know that, you kind of have to keep up and go forward. I mean, that's to me something that I think about this, whether you're a new grad or a professional or not. And this kind of definitely I feel like associates with you a lot, Janine, right? I mean,
totally. You have to be flexible because what you get hired for. I interviewed someone and hired them, and when we were at one of my past roles, and between when they accepted the offer and the 3 weeks, because we have a 3-week gap before they can start internally, we had like all the priorities shift, and they were supposed to be doing front end user touching features and making an impact with all those, and they ended up doing complete back end platform stuff. Like, I mean, and they rolled with it. It was awesome. So you just have to be, be able to go with the flow there. And the other thing I'll say is kind of on that grad question, like we have some internal interns who are graduates, right? So that's another path to go for graduates. And again, be flexible and be able to like change courses, because once you come in, if you want to get that full-time opportunity, you might have to network internally, you might have to switch roles, you might have to show different skill set than what you were originally brought in for. So that flexibility is definitely key.
Okay. And thank you for answering that. Like I'm just like when you were answering that again, like I was sitting here, I was like, yes, we got a good guest on us with us today. and I'm yeah. So I think we have another question that we can really quickly answer. And what's been the hardest or the weirdest part about virtual recruiting? And I think it's part like a fun question that somebody asked us, and the part going to be like it's just interesting times, right? From that perspective, I think I can start it from the I can just kick it off by saying that I think it's been an interesting time getting everybody used to the fact that now everything going to happen virtually, and that includes the candidates as well as the hiring teams. But I want to see what the rest of the panel here has to say. So chime in.
So for me, one of the hardest parts was when this all hit. Candidates, no surprise, weren't actively looking to make a change. So people weren't applying, people weren't responding to LinkedIn. So it was just a challenging time. But I think as people started to get more comfortable with the situation, understanding that, okay, well, this whole adapting to working virtually is kind of here to stay for a while, then things started to pick up. So it was interesting to, we still had our work to do, but it was really hard, and it was external factors that prevented us from actually being successful there for a little while. For me personally, in terms of interviewing, it's been easier because scheduling video interviews is a lot easier than figuring out if 4 interviewers are all going to be on site on the same day on campus. So that's been a little bit easier, and it just allows for a little bit more flexibility on both sides, candidates and interviewers. So I enjoy that part a lot.
It's funny, like,
sorry, Max, go for it.
All right. There we go. Good. No, just Heather, on your point, it's funny. Like I was sitting here thinking about, how I would answer that, and literally, I'm like, yeah, it's been great to be able to, do virtual interviews because they get scheduled much quicker. But it's almost like gives you more work to do because it's more stuff that you're keeping track of at the time. It's not like a 2 to 3 day window of trying to get so and so connected with so and so and make sure everybody's on site and everything like that. So it's been nice, but also it's like, all right, well, I get more irons in the fire, which is also good and also sometimes confusing. But yeah, I mean, for us, it's weirdest. I think it's been, doing a lot more video calls out of this office, I guess you could say. But different stuff. Knowing our benefits details more so than I think I've ever known in the past, in talking about our benefits more than I've ever really talked about in my since I've been here, just because people have different questions. It's less about well, it's always about salary, but it's less about salary, more so like if I'm going to be making a change right now, my healthcare is going to be coming to an end mid-month, and how am I going to live with that? So answering different questions it's a challenge, but it's definitely been eye-opening as well. Accurate.
Love it. Thanks. I think the only thing I would really add to this is that there's a trust level that is very pronounced during COVID. I mean, people lost their jobs. People were given internships that were taken away. Trying to hang on to their current employees. There's a trust level that is so immense that I know even as a recruiter, we're dealing with that too. I know you have a job, but trust me, moving to SAP is the better choice. And so that level of trust has been, something that we value as recruiters as a whole. But I think that the industry as a whole is just, really kind of struggling with, it kind of left a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths. So I mean, we're all trying to fix that, but I would really say, there's still some great companies out there like SAP and others that really are genuinely trying to offer you a great opportunity and not take advantage of COVID. And so to keep that as an open mind, I would definitely recommend.
So, and I think it's been a change for everyone, and I will say that Janine recently moved teams within SAP, and I'm pretty sure when she started this conversation, it might be face to face, but I think things changed after that. So Janine, how was your experience?
Yeah, it's definitely different, and it's hard to kind of adjust to talking to someone on a video camera and making sure you get across your internal persona without it in an effective way, because you can't see that body movement, you can't see those eye contacts the way that you can in person. So you have to just take it that much further, and that step much further about improving the communication skills and being very open and expressive and making sure you try to get through those examples that we talked about before. And that's kind of what I found when I was talking internally and had to transition roles and meet people virtually. It was a lot of that. You gotta roll the punches, but that's what life throws at you. So
sounds good. Thank you.
Mhm.
And that brings us to our close. And I think I'm gonna do that today. And just for the fact that, but no, all jokes apart, like, we kind of like to do some different things different times. We try different concepts. We started on Facebook, now we are on YouTube. But one thing that has been with us is like our audience. Thank you. We appreciate you being with us. And like after every AMA, we like to leave our contact information here. So just in case, if you'd like to catch up, reach out to us, feel free to reach out. Like we say, we always say that we might not respond to you the very second you're going to message us, but we will get back to you. And that doesn't have to be a job, anything recruiting, anything and everything that has to do with recruiting, reach out to us. Janine's information is there. Anything that you want to reach out regarding product management, she has volunteered to answer those for us. And thank you all for joining.